Car's underway. Stamps his authority once again.
My word, this could go wrong.
On the brakes, goodness me, what a launch.
Look at that.
It just all comes down to this. Right then. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome along to another round of your APC season, round number 2, and we've got your regular commentator, Joseph Black, taking you through all of the action. Of course, that is my name, and I'm ready to take you through round number 2 here at the Japanese Grand Prix circuit. It's a very, very good circuit, very entertaining circuit, and it should be one that maybe makes it just that little bit more interesting this evening. Of course, round number 1 was a pretty good race, and we're coming here with just that little bit of intrigue, as we had a new leader last time that looked like he was going to better Andrea Chenkovan. And I'm not going to say anything, I'm not going to cast any aspersions this early on in the season, but it looks like he may well have done. It's 3.608 mile circuit, 18 turns, of course, 3 sectors and just the 1 DRS zone. It's certainly an interesting track, and I'll be able to throw you down to track side, and we're going to have at cars on our screen, ladies and gentlemen. We have action on the circuit, and we have Daniel Riley, the first driver out there. Of course, the easiest name out of all of these to pick up. And, well, there's no game audio, so I'm going to try and fix that one now. So I do apologise for that one. There does appear to be game audio. Maybe it's just, yeah, it's just incredibly low. That would explain it. There we go. That's a little bit better. And what we've got, Daniel Riley coming around to do his first lap of the Suzuka International Circuit. So ride on board with him and with me as we get this one underway. Now heading through the first corner, you've got to be on the limits as much as you possibly can. And just coming out onto the curbing on the exit, really trying not to spin, which is incredibly difficult in this first sector, especially as it looks like it might be about to rain. We'll keep our eye on that one as the lap progresses and as the session progresses. 15 minutes left in it, but Dan Riley heading through that first sector now, using enough of the curbing, I'd say, on a banker lap, and it's a good first sector, a 33.0 now, down into the 2 Degners, needing to definitely not brake in that first one, just throw it in and then brake in the second one before you get to this hairpin. Don't spin here, incredibly hard for non-ABS users, but I don't think Daniel Riley uses it, so a little bit easier, and he can focus on that exit, which he can do now. Power all the way down, heading up the hill. And this is the second hairpin on the circuit. You just got to, again, just a bit like the Degners, throw it into the first corner, set yourself up for keeping that minimum speed up in that second corner on that little segment, and then come out the other end of it pretty quickly. Daniel Riley, it's going to be a 1 minute 11. Having a look at the practice times, you're going to want a 1:29, a 1:30, something like that, to be up there at the end of the session. The start of the session, I'm sure you'll be happy with something in the mid to late 1:30s or something in the 1:31s. Daniel Riley around the final corner then. What's he going to be able to do? It's going to be a 1:29, and he is going to set that statement out straight away. Who's going to be the next driver on the circuit? It's going to be the VCARB, who's going to see what he's going to be able to do. The sole VCARB racing this evening, unfortunately, as, of course, well, we only have the one. But, yeah, up to the line, and wow, what a lap that is. Maybe the practices they did weren't in race trims. I guess that might be the case. Around the final corner, Brian Moore, is he able to get into... Oh, he's got a 1:30.715. Knowing the time that he did in practice, because I actually did join in that practice session, that is a pretty decent time. Looking at, well, another driver, and it's Pro Steven. It's Stephen Snell, who has had an absolutely exemplary start to his season, performed absolutely incredibly last time out to take that victory, and he's going to see if he can do it all over again this time out, as Andrea Chenkovan, top of the timesheets, 1:27.767. Now, Stephen Snell is heading around the second hairpin on the circuit, and we'll head up to the second sector split time, and we'll see what the current championship leader, last time out's race winner, and the Mercedes driver is going to be able to do. His teammate Daniel Riley was the first one up to the line with a 1:29.9. Kyle Stewart-Woodard has gone just 3 tenths ahead of him, and his brother has gone in 4 tenths ahead of him. So Kyle losing out to Connor at this point, not something that we saw very often last year. Now Stephen Snell around the final couple of corners, getting the power down on the exit and coming out of the curve. What's he going to be able to do? It's going to be a 1:28.332. He goes into 3rd place. Not a bad lap, all things considered, but he would have been expecting more, I think. So, it's a good start, don't get me wrong, but it's not the start that he would have wanted. And Benjamin D and Andrea Chenkovan ahead of him. Chenkovan, 6 tenths down the road. Yeah, we've got 9 of our 12 registered drivers out on the circuit this evening. The 3 that are not racing, the other VCARB, Lucas Erosini, and neither of the Williams, Stuart Towers and Harry Jennings, have made their appearances this evening, which is devastating for the one person in chat who came in and said, "Let's go, Mr. Tado," aka Harry Jennings. He's not racing, so that is very unfortunate. But yeah, we have 11 minutes left in the session. 21 seconds added onto that, of course, coming down as we head through it. And yeah, we've got the final few drivers coming into the pits at the end of their first runs. It's Andrea Chenkovan topping it. It's 2nd place to Benjamin D and 3rd place for Stephen Snell. So maybe last week was just a one-off. And, well, I guess we're going to have to find that one out, aren't we? You know what, I'm going to try and find out why this stream is allegedly in 720p, because every other stream I ever do is in 1080. I can promise you this. So I have no idea why this is in 720. If it's in 1080p for anybody else, that would be wonderful. No, now it says 1080. Yeah, it is running at 1080. I'm going to get told off because it's not 1080p, but I swear to you, this is 1080p. Yeah, it is. It's set to 1080p. It wasn't last season, but it is now. And by the way, in the meantime, while I was trying to look at that, we had another lap time come in. And that was Ethan Shackleton going up onto the front row, making it an all Ferrari front row at the very top of the field. Andrea Chenkovan right up there at the peak. And Shackleton only 2 tenths behind him now. And only a further 10th back to Benjamin D. So that's not a terrible start for the VCARB, and he's going to hope to build on that one. Certainly looking in a positive position. But yeah, this is a good opportunity for us to run through together the driver's standings, and guess what? It's a brand new graphic. How exciting is this? Benjamin D, 2nd place. Stephen Snell taking that the majority of the screen, it's fair to say, in that 1st place. Our championship leader, 3rd place for Stuart Towers, not racing this evening, so he's going to drop down, but it's certainly a good start for Benjamin D in his pursuit of Stephen Snell, who has the early lead of the Drivers' Championship. Ethan Shackleton, 4th place, Andrea Chenkovan, 5th place. The 2 Ferraris knocked off their perch, and then Dan Riley, Lucas Erosini, Brian Moore, Harry Jennings and Kyle Stewart-Woodard rounding out the point scorers so far. But of course, Jennings isn't racing tonight, nor is Seracini, and nor crucially is podium man Stuart Towers, and that is certainly going to just keep the championship pretty close. And then the drivers, the constructors' championship, even currently led by Racing Bulls. So Ferrari could be dropped off their perch, and they've certainly been dropped off the perch at the start of this season. Number 9. It is. Well, it's Mercedes on top, actually. It's Racing Bulls in second. I need to get used to that because on the previous graphics, that the second place now is where the first place was, if that makes sense. So it's taking me a second to get used to it, of course. New season, this is the first time that I'm actually leading the broadcast, so it's going to take me a little bit of time to get into it. But yeah, it's going to be Mercedes on top. Decent lineup, I think they've got with Dan Riley and with Steven Snell, of course, and I think they are hot contenders for this championship. But Cenkovanis, if he's able to recapture last season's form, Shackleton the same, then we should be in for a very good championship fight, because Steven Snell and Dan Riley, I'd say that Cenkovan, with the early signs of this season at the very least, is quicker, but it's not by much than Steven Snell. And then Dan Riley and Ethan Shackleton, that should be a very good fight throughout the season, just for that first place. But looking down, they're actually in third place, are that Ferrari team. Second place, Racing Bulls, of course. That is comprised of only the points from... oh, no, it's not, actually. It's the points from Benjamin D and from Luca Seracini. But, of course, the lion's share is going to be Benjamin D in that second place in the championship. Williams fourth, Kicksauber fifth, McLaren sixth, and, well, just with the 1 point. And then seventh and last at the moment, Aston Martin, with just the one driver. He's by himself, and we watched him in the little preview going out on the circuit, and unfortunately not able to set into the pit. Unsuccessful lap time then from him, and he's going to hope to beat what he currently has, which is 6th place for Paul Garung, with a 1:28.792. Not that far off Daniel Riley, in fact, and yeah, it should be a good fight in that sort of portion of the standings, and yeah, of the positions at the moment. But Andrea Cenkovan, this is a different fight. This is a fight up at the very top, and Andrea Cenkovan already has that pole position. Is he going to snatch it away from himself? Indeed, he is. A 1:27.473, and he extends his advantage at the top of these standings. Steven Snell not able to improve. Dan Riley not able to improve either. Maybe they're preparing themselves for the next lap, and Kyle Stewart-Woodard will be doing the same thing, because he has not actually got a valid lap at all, and the McLaren getting around, probably trying to conserve himself some fuel, because when you head around this circuit with the minimum amount of fuel, you end up getting like a crazy low amount. It's like 2.1 or something like that, so you could be very prone to losing. If you mess up that second lap halfway through, you could be very prone to losing that third lap and actually not getting the opportunity to pull that one off. And Kyle Stewart-Woodard at the moment is having will likely be having exactly the same problem as might the two Mercedes. Are they going to go for it? It's not going to be a push lap for Steven Snell, I don't think. Dan Riley, is he going to be as he heads around the final corner? Steven Snell down by 7 seconds, but I can't tell if that's on this lap or last lap. And well, I think it's going to be this lap. Dan Riley, though, we know for sure that he has only just started his next lap on this racetrack. And, well, at the moment, he sits with a 1:28.743, which is 4 tenths behind his teammate and 7 tenths behind the podium sitter at the moment. The final podium sitter of Benjamin D. And, of course, a 1:27 is what they're aiming for. Screw all that 1:30 rubbish. 1:27 is actually what they are aiming for. And Andrea Cenkovan might even push it towards the 1:26s towards the end of this session. He's only got one more lap to do so I don't think realistically that's what's going to happen. But never say never. And with the way that Andrea Cenkovan performed last season, with the way that he's carried it over to this season so far, or at least this session, because I know he didn't have the greatest of round ones, then it could always be a possibility that we could see times that we never expected brought out of Andrea Cenkovan and that Ferrari car. Dan Riley heading out of well, the middle of the second sector, the second hairpin on the circuit, and what is the Mercedes able to do in said second sector? Is improving by 3.7 or 0.372 of a second, and Dan Riley is going to improve on his lap time. Around the final couple of corners he comes. He's not going to lose much time there, I would imagine. And so he's going to come around the final corner and improve on that time. But he's actually lost 0.2 of a second in that final sector. So either he's absolutely stormed it in that first... in that final sector on that first lap, or he's got a bit more work to do, but he's closing in on his teammate Stephen Snell, so it's a little bit more matched this week from the two Mercedes in comparison to the outlandish performance that Stephen Snell put in last time. It's a little bit more conservative might be the wrong word, but it's a little bit more fitting in with the pack, I think it's fair to say, for Stephen Snell, as he's almost a second off of Andriy Chenkovan, unless he's just getting himself warmed up. It's the banker, so maybe he could be in a very, very good position come just a couple of laps time. And he's only going to get one more lap of opportunity, one more push lap of opportunity at least, with 1 minute 49 left in the session, as we've got, I was going to say Will Gibson, not Will Gibson. We've got Paul Garung. The real one's no Will Gibson, but we've got Paul Garung heading through the first sector on his, surely, final push lap. And yeah, that is going to be it, I think, for the Aston Martin driver. And we'll see what the sole Aston Martin in this race is going to be able to do, of course, carrying the teammate on his back for now. And he's, at the moment, carrying the time to improve half a second in that first sector. And that is a very good start from the Aston Martin, as he's targeting a 1:28.2 as it stands. And, well, that's without any improvements in the second or third sector, which is nigh on impossible. Well, it pretty much is impossible, as Andriy Cenkovan's retired. He thinks that 1:27.4 is going to be enough for pole position. Now, a wide exit there, but still keeping it on the track, still keeping it valid. And is he still keeping it fast as the drivers next to him get out of his way? Yes, and he's still improving by 0.5 of a second. So maybe he messed up on his first run in that first sector, and now he's making amends and improving on that time around the final corner then to set a representative lap time that is an improvement on his first sector, 0.7 of a second, and he finds himself in fourth place, jumping Stephen Snell, who's only just begun what will be his final lap of this session. That's going to be all that Paul Garung can do. Daniel Riley in the pit lane, that's going to be all, or that's going to be all that the other Mercedes can do. Identical lap time for Stephen Snell as he did in that first sector one, and that is quite an incredible sight to see. Stephen Snell matching his lap time exactly, and the checkered flag is waved. The final lap times are about to be thrown in, and for Stephen Snell, this is now or never for this pole position. He dominated round one at Australia, and it's now the opportunity to show that he's not just a one-circuit pony, and he can do it in multiple circuits and in multiple countries. And Japan is a very, very good platform for you to be able to do that. You see many a driver going to this country. You think of the likes of Ayumu Iwasa, for example, who headed over to Super Formula and demonstrated that he wasn't just a Formula 2 merchant. Around the final couple of corners then for Stephen Snell, what is the Mercedes going to be able to do? He will be the third driver after Chenkovan, Riley, and, well, he'll be the fourth after Paul Garung to set his time, and he is going to set a time. It's a 1:27.518, so it's not enough for that pole position. Ethan Shackleton improving by 1/4 of a second, but it's not enough to get onto the front row, let alone into the lead. But they're split, the top three, by less than 1/10 of a second. Could be the top four with Benjamin D around the final corner. 1:27.8. No, he's lost some time in that final sector, and so it's not going to be enough of an improvement. Final driver to set a time is going to be Connor Stewart Woodard with a 1:29.185, and he has been beaten out by his brother in the end. 2P7. Connor on the, well, he joins his brother on the second to last row of the grid. The only driver on the last row of the grid is Brian Moore, who's not able to find an improvement in his final run, and Andriy Chenkovan taking pole position away with a 1:27.473. Our current champion establishing himself ever further at the top of the standings, and after a bit of pressure from Stephen Snell last time out, he looks to challenge the lap times and challenge the performances put in by the Mercedes driver, and he's done just that with pole position. Stephen Snell, poor qualifying until the end lap, which was comparatively good, and so I think he can be pretty happy with himself up on that pole position, or up in that front row. But Andrei Chenkovan taking away that pole position, second place, going to Stephen Snell, third to Ethan Shackleton, who will be happy with that lap to be within a tenth of his teammates and be very much at the top of the tree with Stephen Snell, Andrei Chenkovan, the early championship contenders, and Shackleton just finding himself in there. Benjamin D not too far off, second place in the championship, fourth place in this qualifying session with a 1:27.822, and Paul Garung 1:28.0. 5 tenths behind that, Dan Riley, who I think will be disappointed in the way that his race or his qualifying went. He wasn't able to set a final lap on the board. Kyle Stewart Woodard 1:28.6, just a tenth off of Daniel Riley. Krypton, aka Connor Stewart Woodard, with a 29.1, 5 tenths behind Kyle, and Brian Moore unable to set that final time, so not really a representative lap time, but a 1:30.0 or a 1:37 nonetheless, that sees him take the final spot on this grid. Ethan Shackleton ready to chase the front two, but the front two ready to fight amongst themselves. Round 2 of APC is just around the corner. The formation lap is underway here in Japan, and cannot wait to get started, of course, for this race. Andrei Chenkovan ready and waiting for the race to get underway at the front of the field. Stephen Snell ready and waiting for a different challenge. He is going to have to chase Andrei Chenkovan, a little bit of a different dynamic to the way that he won his race last time, and we'll see whether it does end up working out for him. But it's certainly going to be a very, very good race, and I'm very excited for what is to come here this evening for the Almost Pro Championship. Andrei Chenkovan on pole position, our current champion, of course, and the man who absolutely dominated last time out, or last season even, but the man who dominated last time out, Stephen Snell, on the front row of the grid alongside him, ready to challenge, and within a tenth of a second of him in qualifying. Don't forget as well about Chenkovan's teammate Ethan Shackleton, who found himself within a tenth as well, and he was incredibly surprised to find himself there. Then looking a little bit further back, and Benjamin D, who pretty happy with his pace around the circuit, and I think he would have been expecting a bit more from his qualifying session. And same for Daniel Riley. He has expressed that he was expecting a bit more of his qualifying session, and the fact that he was actually quite disappointed with the way that one went, as he finds himself down in P6 behind Paul Garung, the Aston Martin, carrying the team this evening. And we'll see what they're going to be able to do. Kyle Stuart Woodard, 7th place, alongside his brother and teammate Connor, of course, longest serving drivers. And we have a couple returning faces this season, 2 of which, the main 2, are not racing, and that being Harry Jennings and it is going to be Stuart Towers as well. But as we roll up to the grid, and well, Brian Moore will be the last one to take to the line. He's not a fan of this circuit. He said he's going to have a long evening ahead of him in the Kick Sauber, and well, we await to see whether it is indeed going to be a long evening for Brian Moore, whether it's indeed going to be a long evening for anybody ahead of him, or whether it's going to be one of those that flies by in a flash. Brian Moore takes the final grid spot, and we await the 5 red lights for the second time this APC season. Andrea Chenkovan on pole, Stephen Snell alongside him, and the 5 red lights on ahead of them. And the action is underway. Andrea Chenkovan getting off to a strong start. You've got both Daniel Riley and Paul Garung pulling out as it's 4 wide for 3rd place. Who's going to come out on top of it? It's certainly not going to be Kyle Stuart Woodard, who runs off the circuit and drops down positions, drops behind Shackleton, who's had a poor start as well, and drops behind Benjamin D. Brian Moore makes his way past Connor in a poor start for the Stuart Woodards, but Andrea Chenkovan maintains that lead, and Stephen Snell maintains that position alongside him on the front row of the grid. 3rd place then is going to be going at the moment to Paul Garung, as it's a terrible start for Benjamin D and for Ethan Shackleton, dropping from 3rd and 4th to 5th and 6th. And, well, it's certainly a bad start for Ethan Shackleton, 3rd down to 6th place. And I think he's just going to have to consolidate and see what he can do, if anything, out of this weekend. But yeah, Andrea Chenkovan, great start to his race, and he's already pulled a 6/10 gap to Stephen Snell, as I'm sure he's going to try and push away from that DRS. Daniel Riley has a lifeline in fighting for the podium, as he's managed to make his way past the 2 behind, but might come under pressure from Benjamin D very shortly now, the VCARB having come to within 0.2 of a second on that previous couple of runs. And, well, I say couple of runs, a couple of corners, and, well, he's going to see if he can attack as they head down the main straight. But we are heading down the main straight for the end of the first lap of the Japanese Grand Prix, and it's going to be Andrea Chenkovan on that pole position, and a very, very good well, a very good position for him to be in indeed. He took that pole position, he's converting it at the moment into the race lead, and Stephen Snell at the moment nothing that he can really do about it. Of course, he has closed in, but there's nothing that he has done yet to really challenge and stake his claim for that position up at the top. 7/10 back on Chenkovan, and might even lose DRS very soon, and the same might be said for Paul Garung. He's in 3rd place, and well, this could be a very, very good race from Andrea Chenkovan, and a very good performance from Chenkovan, as there might have been contact a little bit further back. Was there? No, as Connor Stuart Woodard has made his way past his brother and moves up in 7th place, and maybe a tactical switch, maybe a little bit of damage, is it, for Kyle? Does not appear to be, but either way, then Connor has made his way past. It looked like he might have let him go, which is why I cast the aspersion of potential damage. But no, it's not damage for Kyle. He's just, for some reason, let Connor through. And, well, it's teamwork at play in the McLaren team. And, well, at the moment, Kyle's already dropped out of the DRS of Connor. So I think it's fair to say that was the right decision to make, to drop him and to swap those positions. But yeah, Andrea Chenkovan leading still, but not for much longer, as Stephen Snell opened up a gap for himself around the outside line, sweeps through, and that is a great move. But it's not going to last for very much longer. Andrea Chenkovan sweeping around the outside and retaking that position, and they are going to be side by side heading down towards the first corner. Stephen Snell inside line, and Chenkovan eventually is going to have to yield the position. They don't want to have a collision on only lap 3 of 27, but that is a very, very promising start and a sign that Steven Snell wants to fight and wants to get this win, and Andrei Chenkovan is happy to do anything to stop him. Snell has made his way through into the lead in the meantime, and that is going to be the start of this race and the start of an intriguing battle getting underway. And yeah, this is going to be, I think, the duo that's going to scrap it out for the title this season. Don't quote me on that, because of course anything could happen, but Steven Snell and Andrei Chenkovan have really demonstrated a pace advantage over the rest of the field in the first 2 rounds, and it's very much demonstrated here. But the fighting they've done has allowed those maybe slightly slower into the fight. Speak of Paul Garung, speak of Benjamin D, who are right in behind them. Chenkovan might pull alongside, just threatens Steven Snell, but doesn't actually go for any sort of move, because he's just trying to open up that gap on the inside or the outside or somewhere on Snell and trying to get past. The Mercedes pushed here last lap to allow himself to pull alongside into the Casio triangle. Is Andrei Chenkovan going to try and pull a rinse and repeat or a Uno reverse guard out of him? It's not going to look like that's going to be the case, as Snell moves across, covers off any potential moves that could be along those lines. And yeah, Steven Snell holds onto the race lead as it stands heading in to lap number 4 of this Grand Prix. Chenkovan's going to stick with him to the inside line now. And, well, it's still going to be Snell on top, and it's still going to be Snell in the lead. It looks like he's got the greater straight line speed, I think, is the difference between these two so far. And that has worked out for Snell, as Carl Stuart Woodard has gotten back past Connor. They've decided that, well, they are not actually, or Connor is not actually quicker and going to catch up, so he stays in behind and he moves behind his brother, and they look like they're going to be beginning a fight for 7th place, as Brian Moore looks to have that 9th place wrapped up. It's the top 4 still within range, maybe even the top 6. Dan Riley 8/10 back, but with any sort of fighting, he could be right in the thick of things, just 2, 3, 4 tenths behind, something along those lines. And yeah, at the moment, a very good position for them to find themselves in. But Steven Snell continuing to lead this race, and yeah, he's just in a very, very good position at this point, where he does have that lead. He has the straight line speed as well, which is what is crucial. Andrei Chenkovan might have shot himself in the foot by going for that cornering speed, which is going to help him so much in that first sector, but nothing's going to help him in that first sector if he is behind somebody who is going slower than he'd expect. So he will need to get past down the main straight at some point, or he's going to find himself massively hindered, and he's got a better exit out of the final corner. He pulls alongside. He's not going to play any games this time. He's alongside, and with that DRS, he may well find himself ahead heading into the first corner. Is Snell going to fight back? No, he's not, and it's going to be Andrei Chenkovan taking the lead back of the Japanese Grand Prix, and this is the position that he wants to be in because of the setup that he's gone for, whereas there could be a little bit of a fight. And well, speaking of fights, there might be a fight developing a little bit further back, and it's not going to involve Benjamin D, who I think has had a spin in that first sector, and he's dropped down. I did switch to the wrong driver, but it looks like he has had an issue and has dropped back off of the pack. Is there any damage on that V-carb? No, there's not. So he might be able to come back very soon, but as it stands, he drops down, and Daniel Riley is out of the DRS of the top 3. So as the race continues, as the race develops, it's going to be more in the favour of those up the top, as Daniel Riley 1.05 behind, and he's not going to get DRS in the next DRS zone if he has that same momentum pull and that same momentum drop. But it looks like everyone's going to drop out of DRS soon, it appears, although Ethan Shackleton and Connor Stuart Woodard might keep the battles going and might keep the fights going. But as it stands, lots of drivers 8 tenths, 9 tenths behind everybody else, and so that could change things on its head. But don't forget Steven Snell's quicker straight line speed, and he's going to try and catch Chenkovan, but Chenkovan with the fastest lap of the race, 31.7 is a statement. Shackleton has made his way past Dan Riley with that DRS, and with the lack of DRS for the Mercedes, I think, is what's made the difference there. Dan Riley dropping down behind Ethan Shackleton, who's now going to set his attack? I've said it twice as well. Attack on Paul Garung ahead. He's going to try and use everything in his ERS tank, is what I meant to say. and he's going to try and just use everything to try and close in. He's got a whole lap because of the fact that there's only the one DRS zone. He's got a whole lap to close in, and he has done so already. Dan Riley might have actually dropped out of the DRS of Ethan Shackleton, so it might actually work against Dan Riley. And well, his race pace hasn't been great today, and I think when we speak to him, he'll be very disappointed with how his first 6 laps of 27 have gone. And yeah, he dropped out of the DRS. But Benjamin D might make it back in, and so he might be able to let him go and do what he wanted to do with Shackleton in the first place, which was Shackleton getting into that DRS and just tagging along. Dan Riley was the idea, but of course that did not work, mainly because Dan just instantly dropped out of that DRS, might have broken his momentum, and just, yeah, he dropped down from 1.3 off of Ethan Shackleton now, and Benjamin D 1.2 off of Dan Riley. Looking at the tyres that everybody's on, and Paul Garung went for a gamble in this early stint. He's on a set of the softs, while everybody else is on a set of either the mediums or the hard compound tyres. Schenkvan, Stephen Snell, and Ethan Shackleton, as well as Brian Moore, are all on a set of the hard compound tyre, whereas Dan Riley, Benjamin D, Kyle Stewart-Wood and Connor are all on a set of the mediums, whereas Paul Garung is on a set of the softs, interestingly enough. So that's certainly a choice that Paul Garung has made, but those softs die off quickly, and he's already feeling the effects dropping out of the DRS and might be fought by Ethan Shackleton. I think it's going to be a 2-stop, and I think he's used up the best tyres that he's going to have this evening in the early stint. Don't get me wrong, it appears to have worked the way that he's managed to close his way in, but yeah, it's not an ideal scenario for him to find himself in at this point in time, where he hasn't quite got the advantage that he would have wanted to out of this first stint, and so it's going to be a little... I think he's going to be a little bit disappointed naturally, but the pace disadvantage that he has now is absolutely huge, and he can't focus on how disappointed he is, because he has to focus on warding off a very quick driver in behind, and a driver that's getting quicker and quicker by the lap because of the DRS and the hard compound tyres coming into effect. That being Ethan Shackleton, who's just the 2/10 behind 21 Cloves of Garlic now. Of course, 21 Cloves of Garlic being an interesting name, and probably the most interesting name in the grid, Paul Garung. And yeah, the Aston Martin might find his position gone by the end of this lap. Indeed, he might do. They pull alongside Dan Riley and Benjamin D side by side as they head down the main straight as well. Shackleton is through, as is Benjamin D on Dan Riley, and he's up into that 5th place. And they have swapped respectively. Well, they've swapped respectively 3rd and 5th, and that is a good start for those drivers that would have felt quicker, and you can see the pace disadvantage that Paul Garung has, dropping down to that 4th place and could be dropping ever further. But yeah, that is very disappointing. It's very disappointing. Stephen Snell, 3-second time penalty as he's dropped off the pace of Andrea Schenkvan. So Schenkvan just demonstrating a lot more race pace, well, a lot more pace in general actually around Japan, and just opening up that gap at the moment, 2 seconds. And with that time penalty, that jumps all the way up to 5 and costs him a lot of time, all things considered. And Shackleton ready and waiting to pounce on that issue. Of course, he is in a very good position right now, mainly due to the fact that he was able to catch up and pass Paul Garung. So he's onto that podium, and after a poor start, partially down to the mediums, partially down to just the fact that he had a poor start really, then he has managed to find his way back in, and still, maybe even now, finds himself in the fight for P2. Of course, P1 getting away as it stands, but never say never. Andrea Schenkvan could drop as Paul Garung does drop, and he is the first driver to come into the pits on lap number 9, a third of the way through this Japanese Grand Prix. And he's taking those soft compound tyres off and switching onto a set of the mediums. I think he's going to do soft, medium, medium. That feels like the strategy that he's going to try for. And well, everybody else on the set of the hards might be going for the 1-stop. I think that's the idea, is that they go for the 1-stop. But hey, you never quite know what they're going to do until they do it. This level, it's a lot less well drilled, let's say, than the esports level, which does give it a lot of benefits. Of course, the Almost Pro Championship is people that are not quite at that esports level. That's what the almost part in the Almost Pro Championship is for, and that means that sometimes they can make interesting decisions that don't quite make sense, but they make sense to them, and it's all a learning experience. Dan Riley now defending ahead of Benjamin D for that 4th place, which is of course net 5th, I think, depending on what everybody else is going to be able to do and when the pit stops happen and how many pit stops they do. I think the race is very much going to come down to how many pit stops can you get away with doing. If you can get away with a 1 stop, then you're in a great position. By the way, the rain that threatened to come, that never came in the qualifying session, it's been an interesting thing to watch on F1 25, where that is a thing, as into the pits comes Stephen Snell, so potentially damage as Benjamin D makes his way past Dan Riley. Is it damage? No, it's just pure pit stops. He's pitting on lap 10 of this race from a set of the hards, which, bear in mind, some drivers are still on the set of the mediums, to a set of the mediums. So that is a fascinating decision, and I can't. Well, speaking of decisions that might be wrong, that might be interesting, that we might not be expecting, that is certainly one of them. And I wouldn't have expected the first person to pit that wasn't Paul Graham, because obviously Paul was on the softs, and he's not a great sample. But I would have expected the first driver that switched to have been one of those on the mediums, as you would normally expect. But no cigar today. It is it's going to be one of the hard runners that makes that switch, and that is fascinating, and that is going to be certainly one to watch heading towards the final stages of this race, as the strategies find themselves out, and as we find out what the strategies are and were the whole time. Of course, they would have planned it going into the race, but the way that a race goes, the way that the dynamic of a race is, it is so dynamic, and it's going to change on a whim, I think. And more than anything, that's really what they're going to do. Dan Riley chasing Benjamin D, and I think it makes sense for one of these drivers to come into the pits shortly and make the switch, just because I'm not sure how much time they're gaining in being in the DRS of each other. I'm not sure how much time they're losing by fighting each other, but I feel like that's got to be a pretty contentious thing for them at the moment, the fighting that they're doing, because it's going to lose them time as Carl Stewart Woodard does come into the pit. So it does feel like it's going to be a 2-stop strategy around this time, then around lap 20-22, and then just taking those softs for the 5 laps at the end. We've seen that Paul Garang was able to do them at the start, and Carl Stewart Woodard on to another set of the medium, so he is committing to that 3-stop. Butchenko, Van Shackleton and Brian Moore all continuing on a set of the hard compound tyres, although the way that Brian Moore was speaking, he doesn't care what tyres he's on, he's just happy to survive the race, which is, that's an interesting attitude to have, but sometimes that's just the way it is at circuits you really don't like. It's a very difficult one at a circuit you don't like, just to try and not only motivate yourself for it, but actually find that time that, because he has problems with the circuit for a reason, because he hates it, but he still has to find the time, still has to put the hours in to try and practice it. And it's one of those weird paradoxes as a driver, where the tracks you hate are actually the tracks you spend the most time on, weirdly enough. And that's what Moore is going to have to contend with. Kick of oversteer from Dan Riley, which means he's not going to be able to close in on Benjamin D. And that's exactly the point I'm making about the fact that he might be losing time, because as much as he's getting that slipstream in that DRS, he's also getting dirty air. Around Japan, dirty air is particularly prevalent just because of the nature of the first couple of corners, and of course he's had that kick in the Casio Triangle, which is in the last few corners, but still demonstrates that there's a lot of dirty air going around on this circuit. So that's an interesting call. Into the pits comes Connor Stewart Woodard. He's switched as well onto a set of the medium compounded tyres, so he is going to commit to that 2-stop strategy. I think both the Stewart Woodards have been communicating about this strategy, as why wouldn't you? As it's the communication between teammates, not just brothers, but teammates, that can be so crucial in getting you up there, even if they're not expecting to be winning any races anytime soon, which, hey, you never know, they may well do, but it feels like one of those that's you know, the best result you can get, the better. And a podium, I think, would be a very good result for either one of the Stuart Woodards. And that is exactly what they're going to target this evening. And because of the fact that the top two have flown away, and that is going to be the case around the whole season. So I think getting a podium for anybody is going to be a massively successful weekend, where they've managed to compete with Ethan Shackleton. I wouldn't be surprised if we get like a Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas situation of Snell, Chenkovan, and Ethan Shackleton on the podium the whole season. I would not be surprised by it in any way, shape or form. Of course, we still have other drivers who could stake their claim for a position like that. So you think of Stuart Towers, who picked up that podium last time, but I wouldn't be surprised if that is the podium that we get most of the season. Into the pits, both Benjamin Dee and Dan Riley, so they're matching each other on the strategy, and I think they're going to go for that one stop. So we'll see how that one plays out, as Snell is on the two-stop strategy, and it looks like Andrea Chenkovan might be trying to attempt the one stop. It's hard to tell at this point because he's on a set of the hards, but of course it'll all work out, and Chenkovan and Shackleton surely working together on this strategy. I mean, they've been teammates for long enough now to know and to trust each other, and yeah, Chenkovan and Shackleton will be pitting on different laps, I can almost guarantee you that. And Stephen Snell not having to worry about that. Daniel Riley a little bit further down on alternative strategy. Stephen Snell on mediums, Dan Riley on hards. And I think Dan is, well, as much as he can avoid it, not going to come into the pits once again. But I think Stephen Snell will be. And Paul Garung in that fourth place is also going to come into the pits. But yeah, we'll see how the one-stop versus the two-stop stack up. But I like the fact that we've got different strategies. I really do. I really like the fact that we've got different strategies. So it's something to just keep an eye on throughout this race. And Dan Riley and Benjamin Dee going for that gamble. And we'll see if that pays off. It never really appeared to be a gamble, I don't think, where, you know, you're going to make the switch onto the one stop. It feels actually like the opposite of a gamble. But the way that this game is, the way that this the tyre model is, it ends up being a gamble, which I don't think they quite expect it to be. But we're over halfway through this race now, and Andrea Chenkovan and Ethan Shackleton leading the way, having not pitted yet. Stephen Snell 15.2 seconds off of Shackleton, and so therefore 19.4 seconds off of the lead of the race. But he's going to go for a two-stop strategy, and he's got a 3-second time penalty. Dan Riley and Brian Moore also have penalties. Brian Moore not having come into the pits yet, the only driver outside of the leading two to have not done so, as I believe he's just extending the stint for as long as he possibly can to hope for a safety car or something along those lines to save his weekend. And, well, I mean, he's going to get points regardless because there's only 9 drivers racing, but of course the more points the merrier. And, well, Brian Moore last time out getting 8th place, getting 4 points on the board, and he would not be opposed to doing exactly the same thing once again. 4 points on the board would be a good result for him, and well, extend his advantage in well, at the top of the Saubers Championship. Of course, those two will be working as a team, Jack Weaver and Brian Moore, but Jack Weaver not rocking up to the first 2 rounds, so it's been all on Brian Moore, and at the moment he's doing all right at the top of the at the top of the pairing. Of course, at the moment they are the second to last team, the last team being McLaren, or the second to last full team. I think it's unfair to include Aston Martin in those equations because of course that's only Paul Garung. But having said that, I think Paul Garung is going to climb past Kick Sauber and potentially even the McLarens as well. As speaking of the Kick Saubers and the McLarens, Carl Stuart Woodard, well, he's gotten past Brian Moore on a new set of the mediums, and I'm expecting that Connor is not too far off doing exactly the same thing and making his way through on him. But yeah, Carl up to 7th place, and I do think Paul Garung does pass them because McLaren currently have the 1 point, courtesy of Carl Stuart Woodard last time out, finishing in 10th place. They would pick up 2 points today from Connor to take their total up to 3. Then they'll pick up a further 6 from Kyle to take their total up to 9. And yeah, it would be as well. That's Paul Grung in 4th place at the moment. He will be picking up 12 points. Chenkovan into pit lane. Is he going to be followed in by his teammate Shackleton? No, of course not, and he's going to continue on. Where is he going to come out in relation to Stephen Snell? I think he's going to come out in behind, but with a brand new set of the medium compounded tyres, and with Stephen Snell needing to pit again. We'll see how this one plays out, but yeah, it's going to be Andrew Chenkovan into the pit lane, out of the pit lane in 2nd or 3rd even, provisionally, maybe even 4th behind Paul Garung. They might even be side by side into the first corner. Who knows? We're going to find out. No, they're not side by side. Garung does tuck in behind, but I think that's a good position for the Aston Martin to find himself in right now, especially if he's able to conserve those tyres and go to a set of the softs at the end of the race, which would be a turn up for the books, it's fair to say. As the softs for Paul Garung at the start of the race were very good. And yeah, Garung is going to, I think, try and rinse and repeat that strategy. As off the circuit he goes. And that's very wide. Is there any damage to... Yes, there is a huge amount of damage to the car. So whether he was trying the softs or not, I think he's going to have to do hards at the end of this race now. Just, he's gone off the circuit. I've instantly cursed him. And, well, he's now going to have to not listen to my strategy. He's going to have to make it up as he goes along. And the making up that he's going to have to do as he goes along appears to be that he's going to have to come into the pits for probably what's going to be a set of, knowing him at this point in the race, the mediums. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see, because surely he's going to have to come into the pits. With that level of damage, you'd expect it. Dan Riley and Benjamin D have kept together all race long, which has been a surprise, and it's a good performance from Dan Riley so far, because I was expecting him to be a little bit further back, but no, he's done well, and well. That's our first safety car of the race. Brian Moore was waiting for one. He's got one. And that is a very interesting way for a safety car to be called out. Sorry, I was going to correct the game being too quiet. I think it might just be alright, but I'm not quite... Honestly, I'm not quite sure what happened there. Because it's not like he's crashed into the pit wall. I mean, obviously he has. But it just looked a bit funny. It looked a bit weird. But yeah, out of the race. Safety car comes out, and that's Paul Garung out of the race, so that's not actually going to be Aston Martin up to the top. Instead, or not up to the top, but up ahead of Kick Sauber and up ahead of McLaren, it's actually going to be Aston Martin still down at the bottom of the standings. Of course, Red Bull, Alpine and Haas not scoring any points because they don't have any drivers. But Paul Garung out of the race, and I think it's fair to say in style. Shackleton, this comes at a perfect time for him, as he's able to make his one lonely pit stop in this race and come out with a brand new set of the medium tyres. Dan Riley into the pit, Benjamin D into the pit, everybody into the pit apart from Stephen Snell. Now this is interesting. Snell continues on. On a set of the hards. Well, well, well. We've got a fight on our hands, folks. Carl Stewart Woodard's in for the softs. Good luck. But Snell on the hards. Everybody else is on the mediums apart from the two Stewart Woodards who are on the softs. Good luck to them. But that's very interesting. Everybody's going to form up behind the safety car. And we're going to go around for, I think, one more lap. Sorry, it's gotten very hot in here all of a sudden. So I'm just going to go and open my window. I think it's going to be safety car in this lap. Or potentially next lap. It would be a bit weird. But there is a potential that the safety car comes in next lap. Nope. It's definitely going to be this lap. And it's going to be Andrea Chenkovan to lead us away like he has so many times. Ethan Shackleton in second place. Stephen Snell on hards in third. Fourth place for Benjamin D and Daniel Riley in fifth place. And I think we can count everyone else behind off. Mainly because the two Stuart Woodards are on softs. And Brian Moore is not happy with the pace that he's showing. I'm not surprised. Green flag racing. We are back underway. And that is an absolutely storming start from Andrea Chenkovan. Already 7 tenths ahead. Fourth place is going to be hotly contested as Benjamin D defends the outside line into the first corner. That is where Daniel Riley tried and assaulted his attack. But he's not been able to do so, and so Benjamin D holds onto the position and wants to hold on to the back and the coattails of Stephen Snell, which he's able to do for the time being, just because of the fact that Stephen Snell is on those hards. They're not going to get good until the end of this race. And yeah, we are back to green flag racing, 20 of 27, and I think those hards are going to come alive. Maybe the last lap or so, or they're going to draw level with the mediums. Everything else between now and then is going to be Stephen Snell's pure pace, and he is going to have incredible pure pace to hold on to the positions. And speaking of incredible pure pace, Andrea Chenkovan is in the lead of the race, almost by a whole second. He is going to be, well, he's 9 tenths ahead of Ethan Shackleton, as Shackleton is 8 tenths ahead of Stephen Snell. The top three spreading out, and this could be where the race is won for Andrea Chenkovan, where he opens up that gap finally and takes the opportunity. Disappointing for Ethan Shackleton, I think it's fair to say, because he got that strategy perfect. Somehow he managed to get that strategy perfect, unintentionally, but he certainly did. Heading out of the final corner to start with what will be lap 21 of 27. It'll be Andrea Chenkovan 7 tenths ahead. Shackleton has pushed to get back into the DRS and get out of the DRS range of Stephen Snell. As fastest laps are pumped in by everybody on the mediums and the softs for Stuart Woodard and Krypton, aka Connor Stuart Woodard. Not working out so far. I said Stuart Woodard because Carr was the first one that I looked at. But it's not working out so far for the drivers in 6th and 7th, and I don't think it's going to work out at any point apart from the first couple of laps. Daniel Riley's dropped almost out of the DRS of Benjamin D. So P5 could suddenly be hotly contested as Stuart Woodard launch their attacks. I may as well call one of them Stuart and one of them Woodard. Never thought about that. Stephen Snell, 1.2 seconds off of Ethan Shackleton, not in the DRS of the two Ferraris anymore, and this is feeling a lot like last season, where the two Ferraris just, you know, they get that advantage, they extend that advantage, and suddenly they are absolutely miles ahead of the rest of the field, and that is exactly what they're doing at the moment. And yeah, they are 8 tenths up on the rest of that field, but Benjamin D closest to anybody else on the circuit. He is right in behind Stephen Snell on those hard compound tyres, and he's going to see whether he's going to be able to pass him. He should be able to. It's just a case of whether he's able to get close enough and avoiding that dirty air that this game is very, very, very capable of. How's the race been? The race has been good, Owen. It's just, well, it was hotly contested. The safety car, I think it's fair to say, has killed off the action because Andrei Chenkovan, just out of it, was able to pull free, and Ethan Shackleton was able to take full advantage to hold on to P2. I think it could have been a great fight between Stephen Snell and Shackleton and Chenkovan otherwise, but you know, that's the way that races go sometimes, and we're still going to get a good fight on our hands for the final 5 laps of this Grand Prix. And yeah, Andrei Chenkovan leading the way. Now, 2 seconds almost of a gap between Andrei Chenkovan and Ethan Shackleton in the first 2, and 3rd place for Stephen Snell. So it looks like it's just going to have to be a consolidation for the Mercedes here today, because surely he's not going to be able to take that first place. And well, he's not going to be able to get close until the end of the race, and then he's going to have to take a couple of laps to set it up, and he's not going to have those couple of laps, which is why I think that it's done and dusted for those first 2 positions, unless Shackleton or Chenkovan can make mistakes. And the last time I said that, Paul Garung went flying off of the circuit and losing that front wing and then crashing out in dramatic fashion and slightly game-bugging fashion. But either way, he's out of the session. He was the cause of that safety car, and yeah, Paul Garung with potentially one of the most interesting laps we could have possibly seen, because of course he had that crash, and then just not long after he had the crash into the pit lane that caused this safety car, and well, it spiced up the action. 22 of 27, 23 now of 27, and Shackleton is fighting away with Chenkovan. He takes the lead of the race, and that's a fight that I wasn't quite expecting. Benjamin D getting past Stephen Snell. That's a fight that 5 laps ago I would have been surprised to see. Now, alongside go the 2 Mercedes alongside each other on the circuit, but in the end it's going to be Stephen Snell ahead for now, but he's going to route that decision to go onto the set of the hard compound tyres, and it's going to be absolute glory Ferrari, or Forza Ferrari even, because glory would be Man United. It will be Forza Ferrari as it stands, with Shackleton up in the lead of the race, and Chenkovan P2, huge slide from Stephen Snell, and that's going to be the opportunity for Dan Riley to make his way to P4. And it's been disappointing for Stephen Snell ever since that safety car restart. It feels like he's always been chasing today, and he continues to have to try to chase. Lap number 23 of 27, and Stephen Snell is behind Daniel Riley, and a fight that could have been for the lead is now for 5th position, or at least a driver that could have been fighting for the lead is now down and fighting for 5th place. Disappointing is the name of Stephen Snell's race this evening, but there's still been some positive signs. Why will you be able to join me for Silverstone in Belgium then? Is there break week? Is Silverstone in Belgium 2 rounds in a row? I think it is. Anyway, Shackleton still leads, and Chenkovan not able to get close enough, but threatening to get close enough, so I think on the next lap he's going to be able to catch. Stephen Snell, aka Stephen Snell, that's a good one. But yeah, he's not been too bad. He's ahead of Kyle and Connor, who I think is going to rue that decision to go onto the softs, and I think we'll get the chance to speak to at least Kyle, where he's going to tell us exactly that. Or I might lead in and tell him that, but see if he agrees with me. And more likely than not he will about the switch to the softs. It was a gamble, but it hasn't quite paid off. Season break, like as in a season break, or the break in the season, like mid-season or between seasons, if that makes sense. Shackleton continues to lead. Is Jenkervan going to fight back? He's only 2/10 back as they head down to the final couple of corners on the circuit. And this is the opportunity that Jenkervan has been waiting for the last couple of laps. Is he going to be able to pull alongside and pull ahead? He's going to pull alongside at the very least. And Jenkervan takes the lead of the race on lap 25. This is when you want to be in the lead of the race, really, 25. Because then you can pass it back on lap 26 and take it back on lap 27. So, I'd say this is managed well from Jenkervan. But if Shackleton is able to take the lead back on lap 26 and stay there onto lap 27, that is where I think the panic will set in for Andrea Jenkervan. Because there is a distinct possibility that he holds on to that position. There is a distinct possibility that Ethan Shackleton is able to hold on to the position at the first corner. That is what he did last time. It took Andrea Jenkervan 2 laps to get past Shackleton rather than 1. Now, if it takes him 2 laps to get past this time, it will be the end of the race. It'll be done and dusted. And well, he's now trying to ward off Shackleton 1.3 seconds. So I think Jenkervan's thinking exactly the same thing as me. I think he's thinking that this race is not over, even if he lets Shackleton pass. So just flying away in the last lap, and Shackleton is closing in, but it's not going to be by enough to get DRS on this occasion, or is it? As we cross the line, fastest lap of the race for Andrea Jenkervan, and no DRS for Ethan Shackleton. So the attempt that he made has not paid off, but it does mean that he's going to get that DRS on this second part of the lap, or this penultimate lap of this race. So it could have worked out absolutely perfectly, weirdly enough, for Ethan Shackleton, losing that DRS, gaining all of that ERS back that he would have lost by trying to stay within range, but then he's managed to use it and get to within range. This could have been a strategic masterclass from Ethan Shackleton. Shack Attack in full swing on the final lap of, or what will be the final lap of this Grand Prix. It's not going to come into play until the final lap of this Grand Prix, but it could be an absolutely generational performance from Shackleton and a generational strategy that may well pay off, and it's going to pay off within the next lap and a half. Of course, 3.6 miles this circuit, and we've got about 5 miles left in this Grand Prix, with the victor not quite yet decided. Jenkervan 0.3 of a second ahead of Ethan Shackleton. Shackleton on a newer set of the mediums, and he's going to go for the move into the final corner of this Grand Prix. He's not going to wait for that DRS. Shackleton gets ahead, and crucially, he has that DRS. So Ethan Shackleton has played this one absolutely to perfection, and there's not much Jenkervan can do to come back. So Shackleton takes the lead, and he's got 3.6 miles to seal this victory. An absolutely incredible victory, and one that he will be incredibly proud of. And in the background, that is fighting away for that third place. Contact, and off the circuit, and out of the race goes Stephen Snell, off of the podium and out of this race. He's still going to pick up points, but wiped out by Benjamin Dee, and that could be the podium heading Daniel Riley's way after penalties are applied. We'll have to wait and see. Keep an eye on the social medias of APC. Of course, Instagram, our main outlet, APC League F1, so make sure to check that one out to see who takes the victory, or takes the final podium spot. But we're looking at the fight for the victory. Shackleton versus Jenkervan, and it's going to be Shack Attack who is actually going to have to defend. The final few corners of this Grand Prix are underway, and Shackleton is just the 0.2 ahead of Jenkervan. They now have the Casio Triangle, and 1:30 to go, and Shackleton is using all he can to avoid the move that he made on the last lap. That was into the Casio Triangle, the late send and Chenkovan is going to be close enough to attempt it. He's going to look for the inside into 130 yard. Chenkovan has managed to pull alongside. Shackleton tried to go full throttle, but actually to go half throttle there is quicker. Chenkovan pulled alongside. Shackleton braked significantly later, and we're going to get a photo finish at the end of this race, and it's going to be Ethan Shackleton to hold on to the victory in sensational style here in Japan. 0.058 seconds in between the two, and that is going to be Shackleton snatching it away from a dominant Chenkovan performance right at the very death. Third place going to Benjamin D after contact on the last lap when trying to get past Stephen Snell. Fourth place for Dan Riley, and fifth and sixth for the two McLarens, but the headlines will be stolen by the two Ferraris and the photo finish. That was special. What a performance then for Ethan Shackleton to take that victory, snatching it away from the Croatian reigning champion Andrea Chenkovan. Third place going to Benjamin D after contact on that final lap. Fourth place going to Daniel Riley. Fifth and sixth to the two Barbadians, the two McLarens, the two brothers, Stuart Woodards and Kyle, beating out Connor. Then seventh and the final finisher going to Brian Moore, while the final registered driver is Stephen Snell. And rounding out the field, Paul Garung, who had a very interesting crash that did decide the race in the end. I think it's fair to say, and Shackleton's actually said the same thing in the chat. It decided the race. It very much decided the race, because if it wasn't for the crash into the pit lane, there would have been no safety car. If it wasn't for the safety car, then it would have been a lot closer at the top of the field. Or the top drivers would have just flown away, and it would have been absolutely dominant. But yeah, Ethan Shackleton, who was happy to stay within range of Snell and Chenkovan at the start, finding himself taking the 25 points home. And I'm not sure whether we're going to get the chance to speak to Shackleton himself. We are going to get a chance to speak to Shackleton, but first, I'm going to try and speak to Brian Moore. Good evening, Brian. Can you hear me? Wonderful. Talk me through that race, because that was a very... it appeared to be not the greatest race for you personally.
Coming out after I played that just ruined the one-stop strategy, so it was just not. It's a race to forget, that's for sure.
That's fair enough. But I mean, you did end up picking up points, and I think that would be more points than you picked up last time. So you are now into double figures for the season. So looking into the next few races and looking into the rest of the championship, really, what's the outlook? What's the target? Of course, there's 13 registered drivers this season. Where are you aiming to be?
I'm aiming to be. My main aim this season is to, obviously last season I fell short of beating Connor, so my main goal this season is to try to one up Connor from last season after I felt disappointed. I had a couple of bad races last season where I couldn't quite do that, so that's my main target this season. Preferably top 8 in the championship.
That's fair enough. Well, and I mean, it's... Are there any particular circuits on the calendar? Of course, it's the second round of the season already, but are there any particular races on the calendar you're looking forward to?
I'm certainly looking forward to Austria, Spa, Zandvoort. I'd like to even say Qatar. They're the top 4 I'm really looking forward to at the minute.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough. Well, thank you very much for joining me this evening. And, I hope that next week is better.
Thank you.
We will bring in, I think, on that note, we'll bring in Daniel Riley, who had a very up and down race and somehow ended up on, I believe, in P4 in the end. So, Dan, if you can hear me, do you want to just talk me through the way that race went? Because it was a very up and down one for you.
Yeah, no, I'm actually I'm really happy with the performance. I'm absolutely shocking at this track. Qualifying, I was nowhere. I honestly just wanted to quit halfway through qualifying. Then in the race, it was very close to contact. Actually, I think I did make contact in the opening lap, but then I kind of got messed up like halfway through at the race. Started falling back. Then I got a 10-second time penalty. Then the safety car came out. I honestly genuinely thought that would have screwed my race. I would have been like P10 or dead last, who knows. But it actually did help me, the safety car, which was actually really surprising. Um, and then I saw Steven, he was slow because he was on the hards, I believe. So I was battling with him, also with, I believe, what's his name, Benjamin. So we had a nice little battle. I felt like Benjamin was a bit, when I was trying to overtake him, he kind of was moving under braking a bit. So, and then he obviously did make contact with Stephen. I'm not really going to say who's at the fault of that one, but I'll let the stewards decide that. But I wouldn't mind a promotion to P3 if things do go my way.
Yeah, I mean that's fair enough, and I think I did say that at the time. I think I said that you would be in line for a promotion to the podium. But yeah, I mean, it felt like a very weird race strategically. Do you think, in hindsight, the one stop or the two stop would have been the better strategy to go on? I mean, I know the safety car kind of threw things out of proportion, but yeah, I mean, with the way that the race developed up to that point, do you think it would have been the one stop or the two stop?
I honestly don't know. My plan was going for the one stop the entire race, but my mediums were so cooked. And I didn't know how hards would have developed on, so it's kind of hard to say. But I was going to go with the one stop originally. Maybe the two stop was probably the better option, and maybe the safer option. I don't know, but I'm just happy with the result, really. With the one stop or two stop, I don't know because of the safety car, but yeah, just really happy with the performance. P4, I'm actually really buzzing about it because two tracks I hate are Japan, Emilia Romagna. Unfortunately, that track is also coming up in 2 weeks' time, so I'm gonna hate that one. But I'm really actually buzzing about P4 in Japan. It's such a track that I'm really bad at, and I got a really good result of it, so I'm actually pretty buzzing.
Well, yeah, and then of course, similar coming up in 2 weeks' time, it could potentially be the case that you end up, I don't know, winning or something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, thank you very much for joining me, and congrats on a potential, not saying anything, but potential podium.
Yeah, Steven's actually just messaged me. He says he's not gonna. He says it's a racing incident. He's not gonna report it. So I don't know. I don't know how. I think it's people report it and then the stewards look at it. I don't think the stewards look at anything unless it's reported. He just said to me he's not going to report it. So we'll take a P4 still. We'll take a P4.
Oh yeah, still 12 points towards the total. Absolutely fine. And actually, on that note, is the Constructors' Championship something you're looking at early on in this season? Of course, Stephen's quick, but well, Stephen's quick, yourself's quick, and well, you got Ferrari that looked quick and had a good result. So, are you looking for that fight early on for the Constructors, or is that not factoring into your thinking yet?
Well, last week I did say some pretty bold statements that I was looking for P3 in the championship and Constructors' Championship, but looking at, I think it was Shackleton won this race. Yeah, he was absolutely rapid today, but we all have those circuits that we're really fast at and we're not good at. Bahrain, I'm expecting to be on the podium in Bahrain. I'm really fast. I think I'm faster than Steven in Bahrain. I was 1/10 off of Chenkovan last season, so we all have those circuits that we're really good at. So it's kind of difficult to say, but I think just wait till halfway through the season, see how close we are. Then we can kind of make these judgments of like we could actually go for it. But I think me and Steven are. I don't want to say we're the best because Shackleton and Chenkovan are really good, but I would say we are definitely a definite top two pairing this season, in my opinion.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, won't we? And well, I won't keep you any longer. I haven't got any more questions. So thank you very much.
Have it. Cheers. Thank you. See you next week.
See you next week. Now, that was. You heard from Daniel Riley, who will end up most likely in that fourth spot. And now we're going to get the opportunity to speak to our race winner. We don't get the chance to speak to him very often, but Ethan, can you hear me?
Oh, I can. Hello.
Wonderful. Hello. Do you want to just talk us through that? Because that was it looked like a very, very successful weekend.
Wow. Yes, I'm so chuffed with that. First of all, in quali at least, like I'm never that close to pole. I'm usually around P3, but I was within a tenth of it, whereas I'm usually about half a second. So I was like, oh wow, I might be in for something today. My thoughts were I started on the hards thinking I'll do a completely different strategy to the other two in the hopes that I can win by doing something different. But they did the same. And then, yeah, I had a horrendous start, but I fought my way through quite well because I think I had the pace to beat them. I'm trying to think. Other pit stops, I was surprised to see that Steven did a 2-stop because the 1-stop was so much better. But Chanky had way more pace than me. I was always going to finish second without that safety car. But I guess I kind of made my own luck because I was thinking I may as well just stay out because I'm not going to undercut him. I'm like 4 or 5 seconds back, so let's stay out and pray. And it worked, yeah. Oh.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That was, I mean, it was a very, very good performance. I mean, coming down to,
Thank you.
well, literally the last corner, was that, I mean, at that point, did you feel like you had it? At that point, did you feel like you might lose it? I mean, of course, ended up coming
Honestly,
all the way down to the line.
I didn't feel confident, but I didn't feel like he's definitely going to pass me. I guess kind of 50-50 because I didn't have much battery, but it's quite difficult to overtake here because there's not many big braking zones, and I guess the final chicane's a big braking zone, but there's no DRS there, so it can be tricky. I'm quite happy that I kind of outsmarted him. I got it before the final DRS zone. Like I used all my battery into the final chicane, whereas we were typically doing the opposite and using it down to turn 1 with the DRS. And I think that's what won me the race. But I was saying in the waiting room that maybe if we weren't teammates, Chunky would have won this one if he could be more aggressive, because you've always kind of got to give a bit more space with your teammate. And I spent a lot of time as the chasing car today. Maybe I wouldn't get past if I was in a Mercedes.
Well, yeah, and well, I mean, speaking of that, and speaking of Mercedes, actually, Constructors' Championship, is that playing into your thinking yet, or not? And also, follow-up question: are you thinking of the Constructors' Championship in terms of you want to help Chenkovan win it? Of course, Chenkovan being the quick driver he is, or are you looking to be the lead for the Ferraris this year? Of course, potentially, if I may say it, looking quicker than last year comparatively.
Thank you. I feel quicker than last year. And yes, I am thinking about the constructors, and I think today might be a one-off. I'm not usually this quick, so on a day like today when I'm right near Chenky, I'm gonna fight him for the win. But if usually at Bahrain I'm not very good, so say next week I'm half a second back per lap, I'll play the supporting role.
That's fair enough. And well, who do you think is looking your biggest threat? Of course, I've just spoken to Dan Riley from Mercedes, who feels like he could be the biggest threat. I think Racing Bulls could give you a good go, Lucas Ericini and Benjamin D. But who would you say is your biggest threat?
I think the biggest threat might be the Mercedes, particularly, although I don't think Luca was here today, actually, so I've only got Australia, the judge's pace, and I think he might have broke his wing there. But Steven's looking very quick, and I believe Dan got this game very late, so maybe his pace should improve as we get further in the season.
Yeah, we'll certainly have to see. It should be a very, very good season. And, well, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us today. And congratulations, of course, on your win.
I appreciate the commentary as well. Thank you.
All good
Cheers.
indeed. Well, now, as is tradition, Kyle Stewart Woodard, final man in the interview room and into the commentary box. And, well, it was an interesting race. Both you and Connor looked like you were matching strategies. And, well, do you want to talk me through, in particular, that strategy? And we'll start off with talking about, after that safety car, you two being the only two on the softs.
Thought you were about to try and find a positive then, and I was like, if anyone can do it, you can do it. But yeah. It's gonna be a long season, isn't it? It's not started very well. I'm not feeling great after that. To be honest, we were going for the two stop. We both felt like the two stop was going to be the best for us. We weren't feeling too fast anyway. I mean, I was it half a tenth behind Dan Riley at quali, so I had the possibility, but the two stop just felt like the option that worked kind of probably best for us. So yeah, that's what we're going for. And then we did that, obviously, that first stop. And I said to myself, I'll go on softs. I might do middle stint on softs and then hope for an early safety car. But then if there's a late safety car, then the opposite would have happened. And so I went on the mediums. And then, yeah, I mean, ultimately, clearly the one stop was the way to go. So that's my fault. Should have done that. We live and we learn. But yeah, So obviously that final stint, we had softs or hards, and he was thinking of going hards, but in the end he changed his mind last minute. But yeah, I don't regret it. I don't feel like I'd have got a better position either way. I feel like the softs were my best bet to get some track position and hopefully hold on to it. But yeah, I've not been feeling great through practice. I love this track. I usually go quite well, so I'm a bit disappointed. But yeah, so just wasn't feeling too confident. Didn't have the pace that everyone else had, unfortunately. So I'm quite lucky to pick up that position, 5th place, obviously with the other incidents that happened around us. But yeah, it wasn't my day, unfortunately.
Well, to be fair, I think you've been hard on yourself there about the strategy-wise, because you could have never guessed that there was a safety car to be pulled out, and that ended up being the deciding factor in the race, pretty much. But yeah, I mean, was there ever any consideration to do a one-stop, or was it always just going straight to that two-stop?
I never considered a one-stop. I think it crossed my mind, but given that I was struggling the mediums on lap 10, I just figured, that was enough for me to say let's stick to the two. So that was what I had planned from the outset. I hadn't really given it a second thought. I mean, obviously I saw everyone else go on it. I mean, when I saw that I was faster than Dan Riley on the second stint, a little part of me went, maybe the one stop might have been the idea here, because he had that 10-second penalty, and I was about 11 seconds, possibly have pulled it back if I was on the hard. So there was a point where I regretted being on the two stop, but at no point did I question going on to it. But yeah, before my pit stops.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. Looking forward to the next few races then. What's the general feeling? I mean, you said you felt positive about Japan, but looking towards the next few races.
Yeah, I mean, it's not started well. Obviously, Australia, during practice I felt great in the dry, but then soon as the rain came out, it seemed to be game over. This was probably my best bet for the early part of the season. So it's a bit of a shame it's ended with this position. Bahrain, I can't explain it. I'm slow. I can't tell you why. I've got no reason as to why. I don't feel like I struggle. I just can't keep up with people. So it's not looking good for the next race either. So hopefully we just bring something home, some sort of points. I know Stuart's back. Jack might decide to turn up. Who knows? And I think Harry's back. Yes, I think most people are going to be around next week as well. So yeah, it's not. Hopefully I can just get a point. That'd be nice. Imola. Again, it's one that I don't feel like I struggle at. I just can't keep up with people there. So yeah, and in Austria is probably the first race of the season where I feel like there's a good potential for some good points. And then I think the second half of the season is where hopefully I'll start to claw it back. But I'm not feeling optimistic at the moment. I'll be honest.
Well, I mean, you never know. I believe there's a new handling model being developed, which is of course the right thing to do 2 months or whatever into a game cycle. But either way, it will be a season that potentially will get better for you as it goes on. But thank you very much for joining us today. And well, that will round out of course, as always, our interview with Carl will round out our evening's action, and it was a very interesting evening of action, coming down right to the very last moments. Thank you very much for those of us who've joined us this evening, and until next time, it is good. Underway. Dance's authority once again.
My word, this could go wrong. On the brakes, goodness me, what a launch!
Look at that.
It just all comes down to this.